everyone, and welcome to another Camera Jabber video. Today I'm speaking with Dan Waite, who's been working with H&Y on their global Kickstarter campaign for the new RevoRing. Hi Dan, how are you?
Hi Ange, yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Good, you've had a busy few days.
Yes, yeah, it's been a few busy days, and it's been a few busy weeks as well leading up to the campaign. So everybody is, you can probably quite hear them now actually. They're all squirreling away, building content and answering questions.
So you very kindly shared the plans with me for RevoRing quite a while ago. So I knew it was coming and I was very excited at the time, and I've had a sample and we've got a review on Camera Jabber. But perhaps for anybody who's not aware of what H&Y RevoRing is, you could just give a quick explanation, please.
Yeah, happy to. So the RevoRing is by a company called H&Y, who was founded back in 2006. So they're not old. They are old, but they're kind of new in the sense that nobody really knew who they were until the campaign came around. But the company has always been about innovation in creating something that nobody's really seen, but at the same time it helps photographers when they're out shooting. So the first was the K series, which is the magnetic square filter system, and the RevoRing is step two for the company in coming up with something innovative. The product itself is a variable step adapter. So you'll see as I rotate the ring on the outside here, you can see that it expands and contracts. And the whole concept is really to help photographers not have to carry so many filters, not have to carry so many step-up rings and get them jammed. This is a kind of an all-in-one solution that allows them to switch between lenses with different thread sizes. So
you're showing the RevoRing there with the variable ND filter on and the polarizer, but there's also one like this, which, just trying to get it in focus there, which has just got the, which is just empty, isn't it? So you could fit your own filters. And it's available in 3 sizes?
Yeah, so as the campaign rolls, we've actually been expanding that, but we originally started with 3 sizes, which was 37 to 49 millimeter thread range, which would take a 52 millimeter filter. Then you go from 46 to 62 millimeter thread range, which would take a 67 millimeter filter. And then there's the 67 to 82 millimeter, which takes an 82 millimeter filter. And I'm so impressed I got that all right. But yeah, so there's 3 sizes that we launched with, and as we've listened throughout the campaign, we're finding that there's pockets of opportunity for different sizes to cover a variety of lenses. So we introduced a stretch goal of $300,000. If we hit that, then we would unlock a 52 to 72 millimeter, which would take a 77 millimeter filter.
Fantastic. Now, are we getting close to that?
We're getting pretty close. Yeah, we're up to 280,000 as of this morning, which is really exciting. And of course, it just fuels backers to start watching the page now, because as soon as it hits, then they can change their pledge. They can add it to their pledge, and it should invite new backers to come in who may just be waiting for it to happen.
Fantastic. And what about, are there any plans for bigger sizes as well?
Yeah, so there is additional stretch goals, which we put in for the 82 to 95 millimeter option. And that definitely starts to kind of creep into the larger 100 to 400 mil style lenses. But also into the motion picture and TV broadcast. You know, there's a lot of TV broadcast lenses that would use 95 mil filters. This would be really appealing to them. Yeah, so at the moment, that's kind of the largest size. But as you can imagine, if it's by scale, we could go up to as large as the biggest lens, but it would be a big ring.
So the idea is that you can track this. Let's just do that. You can track this.
Yeah.
Get it in focus. There we are. And then as you put it on your lens, you let it expand and it hooks into the filter threads, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I have tried it on cameras and lenses, and it is strong enough to sort of dangle your camera from it.
Yeah.
So it's nice and tight. But then it can't bind on. You just twist it and it comes off, which is really useful. Well, one question I've seen people ask is, obviously this one is it's the 67 to 82, which is a nice span, but some people are saying, oh, why have you not covered them all with just one?
Yeah, it's a great question, and in fact, we love all these questions that are coming in because we don't pretend to know everything. And you know, campaigns help you design a product, even though it's not. You know, you think it's finished. There's little things, but the reason we can't really go to the all size fits all is purely the ergonomics and the size of the ring that you would end up with.
Right.
Because the way the mechanism moves inside. It's moving, although the blades are coming in and out, the mechanism's moving diagonally inside on a rail. So the larger you go, the ring just becomes bigger and bigger, and the thickness of the ring mechanism here becomes much wider as well. So it eventually just becomes too big, is the bottom line, even though it could technically be done. It would be like a saucepan on the end of your camera.
Yeah, and I guess, say if you are using a 100 to 400 mil lens, something like that, it's less of an issue. But if you're using a really short little focal length, maybe, you know, a little 50 mil or a 35 mil, suddenly you've got this big donut on the end of it. Plus you've got to pay for a very large filter.
Yes, well, that's absolutely right. You would end up having to buy a 105 or a 95 mil filter to work on a lens thread that might only be 46 millimeters, and in fact you probably wouldn't be able to see the camera behind the actual ring.
Yeah. So where did the idea come from?
So the idea was Kenny came up with this, who's the owner of H&Y, back in 2017. So he's been thinking about it as far back as that. Yeah. And I think because he is a manufacturer of round filters, you know, you're always often dealing with forecasts of building filters constantly for ever-changing sizes of lenses. So Canon, for example, may come out and completely throw off all of their existing lenses by changing from a 52 to a 58 millimeter. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, those customers with all that investment of those ring filters now suddenly have to change. And so for factories, that's really good because they're now going to make more. But to keep up with that is really tough. Yeah. So that then kind of set the seed for this variable interchangeable system. And he's been tweaking and changing and redesigning ever since, up until this point.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, obviously the RevoRing itself is very interesting and innovative, but we've got the version with the variable ND in there, which obviously bumps the price up a little bit more and affects image quality. So what are the specs of the glass?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Angie. Obviously with two separate products here, you've got the RevoRing adapter, which just simply allows customers to put their own filters on, which is great. And that was its very first intention. And then we came up with the idea, or Kenny came up with the idea of morphing it into what is a very popular concept today, which is a variable neutral density. So he actually went one step further, not just with the ring, but actually built in a circular polarizer into the system as well. So what you're now achieving is two of the most popular filters in one. Yeah. And I think, you know, it's quite an important piece for filmmakers, landscape shooters, long exposure. It really covers a wide range of effects. But in order to achieve the high level of quality that this is producing, you know, they've had to adopt German shot glass, B270 shot glass, which has got just about the highest transmission of light that you can pass through the glass. And in addition to that, they've used 9 layers of coating on each side of the glass of anti-fingerprint, anti-smudge, and anti-reflective coatings, which is going to ensure the light passes through with little light refraction. So there's no light bouncing around, which can obviously set the sharpness off or obviously have an effect on color. So, you know, a lot of the testing that we've done and independent tests and people that have already tested it themselves, they found that color cast is almost non-existent, which was one of our first most important things to tackle. It's still impossible to be completely neutral because it's polarizing glass.
Yeah.
It is effectively two polarizing glass back to back. But the coating is where it then steps in to really push this thing to another level, and the style of its application. So what you effectively have is the ability to shoot, let's say, at 200 mil as a filmmaker, or even, you know, just as a photographer, and get absolutely pin sharp images. And even up to as much as 400 mil we've tested at 10 stops, and you can still see detail very clearly when you zoom in 100% on a 400 mil shot. And so that's really critical for us, that while this is a tremendous and fantastic innovation, it's still glass, and it's still the part that affects your image, and has to be the best it possibly can be.
And the ND ranges from, is it 1.5 EV to 10?
Correct. Yeah. So the minimum is at the 1.5 stops all the way through to 10 on the longer focal distances. And the reason that is purely because all the center of the glass is where you get the most effect. And as you go further out the glass, on the wide angle lenses, you don't get the increased stops as you would on a telephoto.
Okay. So obviously that is of use to, as you say, stills photographers, but also to videographers.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really good tool that fits right across the board. So if you want to dial down and get some increased depth of field when you're filmmaking and really pop your scene, then just to be able to quickly dial it in while you're shooting is incredible.
Great. Well, I got a very early sample to test of the variable ND with the circular polarizer in it, but the version that's actually going to be available on sale is going to be quite different from this, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And again, we wanted to put it onto the Kickstarter platform at a time when we could still introduce changes. You know, we felt it was wrong to just bring something complete. So already, you know, from the Kickstarter campaign and from comments outside, you know, even on, you know, your channels and other channels, we're reading all the questions, and some of the things that we've really come up with that really did need adjustment was the min-max on the actual ring, to stop it going past the minimum and past the maximum when you're adjusting the actual variable ND portion and the polarizer of the glass. So often when you're shooting, you know, you can't always be coming round to check the filter all the time, and so the point of reference to know that you can't go further is quite important.
And so, if you're filming video and the sun comes out, you can adjust the filter very carefully so to counteract the, you know, the increase in brightness. But what you don't want to do is take it to the point where you get the cross appearing. So by putting stop in, you'll prevent that, won't you? Yeah,
100%. Now, obviously that stops the min and the maximum, but obviously the focal length, you know, depending on the lens that's used, will still come into play. So anything on a dramatic 16 mil, you know, far wide, you're only going to be able to move it, but the guides on the top will dictate, you know, those positions.
Right.
Because that's another update we've introduced, which is, rather than the first sample that we came out with, we simply had equal distance lines on the ring, which really didn't mean anything. So we actually sat down and said, no, we've got to change that. And these guides have to be based on focal distance, so that when the photographer is out shooting, they can actually look at the guide and they say, right, I've got a 24 mil, so this is the guide I should be at. So they know that they can work between the min and the guide when they're shooting. And the same if you're on telephoto, you're obviously at a much better opportunity to shoot at the higher density or the higher stop range.
Okay. And how long have people got to back this on Kickstarter now?
So it's got another 32 days, which kind of seems like a lot, but when you're managing every day, it does go by quite quickly, actually. So 32 days is the actual Kickstarter campaign, and within that will be the best possible discounts before it comes retail, and maybe even to Indiegogo, which is another platform that often people go from Kickstarter to.
Mm-hmm. So because it's reached its original target, these products are going to come to market, aren't they?
That's 100% right. Yep. As
Yep.
soon as you hit that that minimum threshold that campaigns have in place, you are kind of legally obliged to follow through and actually bring this product to market. Now, often you hear of a lot of bad cases. I think even some of our video reviewers have said that they've backed products that they're still waiting for 6 years later. And that's really frustrating. But I can certainly say with confidence, knowing, you know, I've been in this industry long enough and seen what's going on behind the scenes, that we're over 110% confident this thing's going to happen. So that's really good.
And what's the likely delivery time for the products?
Well, it's still on track. You know, we're directly connected into the factory. All the updates that are coming are not affecting anything that we've experienced so far. So November this year, and just before Christmas, of course, which is really good. You know, we're looking to deliver.
Okay. And when will the products actually, if somebody doesn't back the campaign and then really wishes they had, when will they actually be able to buy them in the retailers?
Yeah, so I'd say, well, go and back it. Don't wait. But in all honesty, it's going to come shortly after. So the way that it kind of works for us is that Kickstarter finishes at first week of August. Then we'll transition over to Indiegogo, which is kind of a pre-order system anyway. So customers can then really start to pre-order it with a smaller discount, but not as big as Kickstarter. And then it goes on to retail for pre-order around September, October time. And we are obviously going to try our best to deliver everything this year. So the Kickstarter will always be delivered first, because they're the ones that are, you know, putting the confidence in us and backing us. Yeah. But we're really going to try hard to get all pre-orders, everything done by the end of the year. But, you know, naturally it might increase push over into January, potentially.
Now, originally, I think it's changed now on Kickstarter, because the original prices showed Hong Kong dollars. And if you live in the UK, that initially looked quite alarming. I think last time I looked, has it changed to US dollars now? I think there's some US dollar prices.
Yeah, we did actually take that into account. So what we did is we took, because of the way it works, when you sign up to Kickstarter, everything's done in the currency that the country of where you're registered, in which case this is Hong Kong for HMY. So Kickstarter will automatically change or convert it into the currency based on your location, but often that doesn't, or can be the case where it doesn't work. So we then changed all the prices, or we tried to show it in as many references on the page that it was converted into US dollars. So it does look scary when you see 180 Hong Kong dollars and suddenly realize it's only $20 or there $23, then it's not so bad. Yeah.
So if people want to back the campaign, are they able still to back an individual RevoRing, or can they only buy packages of all three? How does that work at the moment?
Yeah, so the way the pledges work right now is, and we're actually going to back this up with, we've had somebody code and build a calculator for us. And with the idea being that we didn't want to create pages of different pledges, because it became too big, too confusing. So we actually reduced it down to backers choosing the amount that they want to pledge in terms of value. And at the end of the campaign, what happens is we send out a survey through a third-party company. And what they do is they list the products in the survey, and the dollar amount that you've actually pledged gets assigned to the products that you choose in the basket.
Right.
So it means that if you go in, you can back one ring. If you want to back two rings, you can add another ring to the pledge amount. And you can also, there's ones that we've put in place where you can get some extra discounts if you back all three rings together. And there's my favorite, which is the full Monty, which is one of everything.
Yeah. Great. Now, H&Y, they first came to my notice when they introduced the magnetic converters for rectangular filters. Now they've brought this out, this very clever idea. Obviously a very innovative company.
Yes.
What else can we expect?
Well, I can certainly share a bit of gossip with you in that, you know, backers right now, and I think anybody that was looking for the 1% in the detail of what we do, they'll read, a lot of the backers have come in and said, well, I already own the K-series square system. Right. And you'll have somebody come in and say, well, how does this work with, you know, the RevoRing adapter? And so, you know, to put the 2 and 2 together wouldn't be far wrong. Let's put it that way. And so what I would suggest is anybody watching this is that keep an eye on the campaign, because at some point, these two could very well merge in the not too distant future. Interesting.
Great. Okay. Well, Dan, it's been lovely speaking with you. Thanks very much for joining me this morning.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.